Week 14 gave us some unbelievable action when it came to NFL football. It was truly probably the best weekend overall when it came to football, and really sports in general when you factor in the World Cup that happened on Sunday. Started off with things on Saturday night. It's great about this time of year every year in the NFL. You get the games on some Saturday nights. In this case, we got three of them. Talk about the first one, the Vikings and the Colts game. Colts visiting the Vikings. And this one, you're thinking, oh man, Colts, they're going to get smoked in this game, especially how they looked in their last game against the Cowboys. And Vikings are, 10-3, and they're definitely a much better team than the Colts at this point. Colts end up going up 33-0. And it's like, whoa, no one saw this shit coming. But even bigger is the fact that no one would have foreseen the Vikings coming back from 33-0 to beat the Colts in overtime in what was the largest regular season comeback in NFL history. So the biggest blown lead, biggest choke job, however you want to put it, that's what happened in this game. So you got to see legendary stuff in this one. Vikings prove they are resilient. They've had a whole lot of comeback from behind wins, a lot of close wins. They've got like a 9-0 record or something like that in these one-score games. So they definitely know how to come back. And someone who does not know how to come back is Matt Ryan. My goodness. At least now he can say he's blown a bigger lead than he did in the Super Bowl. So now he can say he's blown the biggest regular season lead in NFL history, and obviously the biggest Super Bowl lead in history. This guy is just a bona fide loser. And the Colts, I think now with Jeff Saturday, they're at like 1-4 or 1-5, something like that. So yeah, I don't think he's exactly going to be their coach of the future. You can expect to see him back on ESPN next year. But I think most people with a brain saw this coming. You don't just come from TV and start coaching and shit like that. So that was the first sort of spectacular event that happened on Saturday. Then in the middle, you had the Ravens-Browns game. The less said about that game, the better. Saturday ended in great fashion, though, with just a classic game. Dolphins visiting the Bills. The Dolphins, who had looked really shaky the past few weeks, losing 2 games and not looking very good. You got the Bills, who needed this win to keep up their number 1 seed and hold off the Chiefs. It was a great game. People thought that the weather was going to be playing a major factor when it came to the cold and the snow. And the cold was definitely a factor throughout the game. I think it was like 20 degrees throughout the game. But the snow was not until it really started coming down during the fourth quarter. And those type of games, it's rare that, you get to watch them, obviously. But of course, in Buffalo, during this time of the year, you can potentially get that kind of snow and downfall. And it was just a really fun game to watch in the fourth quarter. Just the snow coming down, the fact that both teams really needed the game. It was a very well played game by both teams. I think the Dolphins really showed something in the second half, the way they were able to come back, take the lead, play, solid football in that kind of cold weather. You're talking about a team that plays in Miami, going up to freezing temperatures in Buffalo. But the Bills ended up winning this one, 32-29, won on a game-winning field goal at the very end, walk-off field goal. Really fun game, really fun stuff, and that kind of atmosphere and just seeing that at night, oh, that's just a really fun game to watch. It was a great game. Then you got to the Sunday action, which lived up to the great stuff that we saw on Saturday. This was just a game of just some unbelievable final results highlighted by 2 games in particular. The first of the lesser of the 2 that I'll start off, but it was still great. Cowboys at the Jaguars. Mostly people think the Cowboys would be the favorite in this one, but the Jags have been playing solid football for the past month or so and putting themselves in contention to surpass Tennessee Titans, who have been really struggling over the last month or so. But even still, Cowboys were favored. Cowboys were up by a decent margin, 27-10 or something like that in the second half. And I figured to myself, all right, we got this game in the bag, good stuff. Like I said, I'm a Cowboys fan. Jaguars end up coming back all the way to actually take the lead. Game goes to overtime. I'm just thinking, all right, just come on, get the game. Let's get this one. We're driving down, going to go get it. And in what Dak Prescott has been doing the past, really since he's come back, just a lot of turnovers. And yeah, definitely his worst turnover of the season so far, which definitely, in all honesty, wasn't completely his fault, but it was still just a bad result for the team. Throws the ball to, I forgot who it was. It wasn't CeeDee Lamb, but they threw it to someone. Ball sort of goes off his chest, goes up in the air, gets picked off, and it gets run back for a pick 6, walk off, touchdown in overtime. and Jaguars win. Just a devastating result, really bad result for the Cowboys, who needed this win to put them in contention to compete with the Eagles for the top spot as they play this weekend on Christmas Eve. Now that game really doesn't mean much, just because Eagles now would have to lose their next three. Cowboys would have to win out. And yeah, that game is not going to have anywhere near the significance as people thought it would. You know, you had so many sports shows talking about the game all of this past week, you know, talking about Philly and Dallas playing on Christmas Eve. There was a whole Micah Parsons thing talking about Jalen Hurts. And, you know, that's typical Cowboys stuff, looking past opponents, shooting themselves in the own foot, making a spectacle out of things and not looking at the opponent ahead of them. And, you know, this could have been foreshadowed when you see how they played against the Texans the week before. And now the Jaguars are a much better team than the Texans. And now the Jaguars, man, Trevor Lawrence, he's another story that he is definitely the QB, the next great QB in the AFC, and living up to that number one top pick billing that he's had. He's looked just amazing the past month or so, and this was definitely his showing out party in terms of like a national audience playing against the Cowboys. And yeah, like I said, they've put themselves in contention to compete and actually win the division, given how bad the Titans have looked over the past month or so. And now they're only a game behind, so that should be a fun result to watch in the AFC South. And you never hear me mention anything fun or interesting about the AFC South. So I mentioned about the Eagles. Eagles were able to win their game, although it wasn't, you know, it was kind of a back and forth. It wasn't Jalen Hurts' best game against the Bears, but they ended up winning that one. In between, also, you had the Buccaneers-Bengals game, another sort of interesting comeback where the Buccaneers were up surprisingly like 17-0 or 17-3, something like that. And Bengals just ran them down in the second half of the game. Buccaneers really shot themselves in the foot. Brady specifically, just a whole bunch of like turnovers and all that kind of stuff. And the Bengals have just looked like the best team overall in the AFC. I know record-wise it doesn't say that, but over the past couple months, they've just looked like a great team. And in my opinion, should be the favorites given how they've looked over the past month or so. But you had that result. That was another comeback. But the comeback to end all comebacks, and I guess it wasn't really even more so the comeback, just sort of the final result. Patriots and the Raiders. Now, this was a game taking place in Vegas that the Patriots definitely did need, and you know, both teams needed to sort of be in the playoff positioning they wanted to be in. Patriots, you got them in the 7th seed. Raiders had a really bad loss the week before against the Rams, but they had been playing better, keeping their playoffs hopes alive. Patriots ended up being up in this game on 24-17 or something like that. They gave up a really bad touchdown at the end to sort of tie the game, to have the Raiders tie the game up 24-24. Patriots are going down the field. The game's essentially over, and they attempt sort of a lateral in the final seconds, and just the unimaginable happens, and you just never see this happen. I don't think this, to my knowledge, this has never happened before, where they gets thrown. Jacoby Myers has the ball, throws it behind to Mac Jones, who gets intercepted, and by Chandler Jones, who just runs down for a pick six to end the game in walkout fashion. Spectacular result to watch. I can't imagine watching that result live on TV or freaking like live in person. You know, you just never seen anything like that happen. That's just an unbelievable result to see happen at the buzzer like that. And that was just a devastating loss for the Patriots, who, like I said, they needed this game because they have a very tough schedule. You know, they're playing the Bengals, they play the Dolphins, they play the Bills in the next 3 weeks. You know, they were clinging on to that 7th seed. So the combination of that and the Chargers beating, like I said, the really shaky Titans, Chargers now have the 7th spot. Patriots, I don't foresee them making the playoffs now just because they have a very tough road ahead, and now they have to leapfrog the Chargers, who are a game ahead of them now, so it's probably not going to be happening for them. So that was an unbelievable result. And even the Sunday night game, I know Giants versus Commanders ain't exactly a sexy matchup, but both teams have been playing, you know, decent football. Both were in playoff positioning. The winner of that game was going to be sort of in the driver's seat to hold on to that 6th seed, and the Giants ended up getting this one. It was some controversial calls or sort of stuff that happened at the end, but you know, whatever, that's football. Giants ended up winning this one. They're the 6th seed now. They're the 7th seed. So yeah, you still have those AFC East teams taking up those final 2 spots in the playoffs right now. So there goes your week of football. right there. It was definitely very interesting stuff. Great results all around. When you look at the overall playoff picture, I think the major ramifications for what happened this past week is just the fact that now the Eagles versus Cowboys game doesn't really mean shit this week. You know, the Eagles would have to lose their final 3 games, and that's not really going to happen. So Cowboys looking ahead to their game against the Eagles and overlooking the Jaguars really shot themselves in the foot. Another really interesting result to look forward to going forward is that AFC South. Like I said, I don't give a shit about the AFC South. It's a very unsexy division. But now with the way the Titans have been sort of falling off and the way the Jaguars have been playing and how exciting they've been with Trevor Lawrence and shit like that, that's going to be really interesting to watch it all, how that plays out, because those teams have another game coming up, and that'll definitely, it's going to come down to all of that. So that's going to be a really fun stuff to watch going forward for that game and whatnot. So yeah, it was a weekend of spectacular results. But you have this Saturday game, the amazing comeback by the Vikings and the great Bills and Dolphins game. The Sunday games, the spectacular comebacks, the finishes, great stuff. And the World Cup, seeing that at work. I'm not a big sort of football fan, but I know I'm a soccer fan. A lot of my friends are, and it was seeing them watching the World Cup, how excited they got. It was definitely a pretty fun finish in that game also. So it was overall great weekend of football on the week before Christmas Day. And speaking of Christmas Day, Christmas falls on a Sunday this year. That means you're going to get your Sunday matchups on Christmas. Although these Sunday games are far from spectacular. I mean, my goodness. You have, what do you got here? Buccaneers Cardinals is the Sunday night game. Oof. Broncos at the Rams. Oof. Packers at the Dolphins is probably the best out of those 3. But even that game, the Packers, I mean, no one's buying them seriously as a playoff contender. That the game obviously means more to the Dolphins, obviously. And then your Monday night game next week is Chargers at Colts. Oh my goodness. So yeah, not a great week of football coming up when it comes to the Sunday matchups, which got a good batch of Saturday games to watch on Christmas Eve, but I'll be working that day, so we'll see what happens, I guess. So that'll do it for this week 14 or week 15 wrap up of all the games that happened. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.